work alongside you, and it's been great working alongside you. And I know it's been a really turbulent couple of years. So thank you for everything you've done for all of us. So on that note, so as I wrote in the treasurer's report, it's not really breaking news that we continue to operate in a really challenging environment. And we saw this in our financial results coming in from the last year, where we showed an operating loss of about $163,000 for the full year. And I think the Cathedral staff are really to be commended for what they've continued to do, an ongoing commitment to really prudent financial management. And just want to thank them on behalf of really the entire community and the council. And we also owe a real debt of gratitude to the foundation. I know I saw a couple of folks from the foundation on the call. Their support's been essential to maintaining our ongoing operations, in particular because, as I noted in the report, unlike in 2020, we did not receive assistance from the federal government this year in the form of PPP grants. So that support from the foundation was and continues to be incredibly important to us. So in spite of those challenges, working with staff, council, Mike Sewer, the finance committee, the staff, we did see some wins this past year. And in particular, I'd call out the implementation of a 3-year strategic budget process and the rationalization of our accounts associated with restricted funds. I know that sounds really kind of not too glamorous, but it's important work that had to get done. And so those were some significant wins. And looking to 2022, so we've approved a budget, the council approved a budget with revenues of $1.865 million and expenses of $1.847 million. So that's essentially a break-even budget, a slight operating gain of about $20,000. And this reflects ongoing cautious management of expenses. I think extraordinary support from the foundation beyond what we would normally receive, and a really impressive increase in stewardship commitments in the face of ongoing economic headwinds, right? So we're looking at approximately $1 million in pledges and stewardship commitments, which I think says a lot about this community. A lot of work went into this budget. And I don't want to underestimate the amount of work that was put in by a lot of individuals on this call and not on this call. So looking beyond 2022, the strategic budget process that I just mentioned really called out one thing in particular that I think we as a broader community all need to be aware of and support. It's going to be very important that St. Mark's expand our revenue streams, such as income from rentals and events, in addition to relying on traditional sources like stewardship, planned gifts, and foundation support. If we're going to maintain financial stability and thrive and grow over the long term, I just think this is incredibly important. And we see examples of this, right? Other faith communities of our size, stature, reputation, some in very close proximity to the cathedral, who have shown that this can be done in a way that leverages their assets financially while staying true to their missions. We've got a lot going for us as a community. The location, our amazing community, our staff, our physical, plant and building is amazing. And we've invested this money in our AV streaming system. It's really best in class, and it provides a solid foundation, if we're all committed to doing it, to grow that other source of revenue so that we're not as reliant on stewardship and foundation, both of which are incredibly important, but we need to improve the mix of our revenues over time. So again, for this coming year, for 2022, essentially a break-even budget, with some, again, incredible support from stewardship standpoint, the foundation, and then beyond this year and beyond that, we're going to need to really increase our other revenue sources. So that was it in terms of a report. Carrie, maybe if you just wanted to flash up on the screen that section of the treasurer's report that shows the revenue and expenses. And then I think we need to vote on approving that budget, right? Is that right?
No, I don't believe we do.
No, we don't. Actually, we don't.
No, we do not.
Approved it. This is just informative.
Correct.
Yep.
When you say Carrie flash up the budget, do you mean Carrie Thomas or Carrie Child?
Actually, we don't need to. It's in the report.
Okay.
I just verbalized the number, so I think we're okay.
Awesome, because I don't have it ready, so that was going to be a minute.
But it is in the annual report, and
it is in the annual report. That's correct.
Information sent to folks, so they have a copy of it. And I will point out that if anybody has any questions, that they can reach out to Ted.
Absolutely.
To clarify any issues. So thanks, Ted.
Yeah, and I really encourage people to do that if you want more information on the details.
And Carrie Thomas blessedly just dropped the link to the annual report in the chat. So if you haven't gotten a chance to read the whole thing, it's right there.
Thanks, Gary and Carrie.
Okay. Thank you, Ted. I guess I'm up next as outgoing former senior warden. Let me say first, thank you to all of you for giving me the opportunity over the last 4 years, actually, first year as a junior warden, and then 3 years as senior warden, to serve your magnificent cathedral. As some of you know, I've only been in the community itself, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for about 6 years. So it's a fast track, but I had some good tutors along the way. Jim Huber and Sarah Nowlin. I was under the tutelage of Sarah Nowlin for a year, and I have a great amount of gratitude and support for her because she gave me a lot of lessons learned during the first year. So thank you, Sarah, for all your help. I appreciate it very much. And to Jim Huber, he is the gold standard of senior wardens, I think, for St. Mark's. Somebody who I learned a lot from and has been very supportive over the years. So thank you to Jim. I also want to thank all of the staff. The staff we've had, as Ted pointed out, a very difficult couple of years through the pandemic, and it would not have been possible without the support of the cathedral staff. They took a lot of hits on unfortunately, because of what we had to do, and they did it very graciously, and we can't thank them enough, and I'll be eternally grateful to them for that. And thank you to all of the clerical staff, clergy staff, particularly Dean Paul, and particularly Canon Pastor Tim. They have been with me every step of the way. And again, I could not have done this without their support and their help and their guidance. So I very much appreciate that. As Ted also pointed out, we could not be where we are without a partnership. And the partnership is that of the foundation, specifically Fred Moore. He has been a rock solid supporter of the cathedral and a friend of mine. And as I said, I deeply appreciate his friendship as well as the support of the foundation. So thank you, Fred. And thank you to all of you. We could not have done what we've done in 2022 without you. Again, as Ted mentioned, the stewardship count so far is about 950, and it's growing as we go forward. And that's some level that we haven't achieved, at least in a very long time. And that would not have been possible without all of the support of all of you. So I truly personally appreciate that kind of support, because in these times, it was very easy for people to say, no, I'm not going to participate, or we haven't been together, so what do I need to do this? But you didn't do that. You all stepped up for that. And for that kind of support, there's just no words to describe this, the gratitude I have for all of you. So again, thank you for all of your support and your help over the years. I appreciate it very much, and may God's peace be with you. I'll turn it over to the Dean.
Thank you, sir. You'll be missed, but the good news is you'll be among the cloud of witnesses of former senior wardens. So welcome to that club. And I look forward to circling back with that. And I trust that you all will do your very best, as always, to tend to the heart, mind, and soul of our incoming senior warden. And that's how we both maintain the wisdom and the tradition of the place, and how we just love on one another. It is not work for the faint of heart. So thank you for everything you've done. Also want to shout out a couple thanks to folks who you all are not seeing because they're behind the scenes working. This morning could not happen without the quick minds and tech savvy pivoting of Carrie Thomas to my right and Tina Craby right across the table from me. So if you could all just express just quick gratitude for them. They really help make these things happen. And during the COVID era, when there's just so much uncertainty and things seem to be always shifting at the last minute, it's just such a great thing for me to know that we've got a team that can do that without completely losing their mind. And even better, y'all have excelled at it. So thank you both. It's a treat to get to sit here with you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to be together. I know that this is precious time on a Sunday morning, particularly a Sunday morning when the sun is out this time of year. So thank you for investing this time in one another and in the Cathedral community that we love. Glad to have you here to hear a little bit about this past year and these reports and give you a little sense of what's ahead. I've got a lot of words that I want to share with you, so I'm going to try to be very efficient. And we're going to record this, so don't feel like if you don't capture all of this that you can't go back and grab it. But this is really the first time in a while that I've had a chance to address the entire Cathedral congregation with really my sense of the state of the Cathedral at this point in the pandemic reality. So what I'm going to lay down here is an intention to be somewhat thorough. So I'll try to be quick though. As mentioned, in addition to the excellent reports that were submitted in written form, which you can find in the annual report, which is linked from the Cathedral website, here's just a few of my thoughts. It is clear that despite innumerable challenges these past 2 years, that we at St. Mark's have so much to celebrate. Multiple generous gifts combined with staff ingenuity and creativity have enabled us to move the bulk of our common life online. And we anticipate moving forward, at the very least, a hybrid reality, because we're finding so much success touching the lives of those who could not otherwise be part of this community. So know that that is going to remain in place. Thanks to Mary Lusk and Siri Hauge-Husted, Ray Johnston, Terry Erickson, Jim Fitzinger, and the entire AV crew up in their little box behind the Cathedral chancel. Both our program and worship have continued uninterrupted, which not only maintained our own congregational connections with one another, but has expanded our reach to those who might not otherwise have engaged. This includes reaching out to over 5,400 households who joined us in online worship, over 17,000 views from over 30 different countries. The new member team shepherded over 100 individuals through the process of becoming new St. Markans, even in the midst of COVID separation. The expense to increase our reach was not insignificant, yet St. Markans showed up in a big way, as we heard from the treasurer and the senior warden this past fall, committing nearly $1 million in pledge funds to our 2022 budget in order not only to continue, but to expand the good work that is happening among us and around us. And so I want to join the senior warden in thanking you all for stepping up. Additionally, during 2021, your Cathedral Council and staff continued the hard work of redeveloping our business operations team, ensuring increased role clarity and competence, workflow and process, and identifying long-term efficiencies, both to manage costs while at the same time endeavoring to increase our openness and availability to the needs of the larger community around us. Again, to be the kind of community asset that we want to be requires that we invest in our buildings and in our grounds, in our digital presence, and in our real-life hospitality, and everything it takes to invite others into a common life with us, to receive them well, to orient them to space and to practice, and to incorporate them into a real sense of belonging here at St. Mark's. Of note, within all the great work overseen by our canon pastor, senior warden, treasurer, and finance chair, I want to extend particular thanks to two individuals. First, to David Christofferson here with us this morning, who has served faithfully and effectively as our internal auditor, helping the finance team make sense of multiple historic fund designations, accounting nomenclature, and process gaps, all to the end that our long-term accounting is smooth and is accurate and is worthy of your confidence. Thank you, David. Second, to Kate Thompson, our business manager, who only in her second year in that role has managed to close the books on the previous year prior to the January council meeting, which not only benefits our annual auditing processes, but better ensures that your council and staff know exactly what resources we're working with in the new year. Thank you to Kate. We know none of this would have been accomplished without their sacrificial gifts of time during what was already a very stressful year for all of us. And on behalf of the whole congregation, we are deeply, deeply grateful to you both. Thirdly, in addition to expanding our reach and strengthening our infrastructure this past year, we have also begun the hard work of plumbing the depths of our life together with regard to race, racism, and racial justice. With the excellent leadership of Mary Ramsbottom and Brian Childs, supported by Archdeacon Rena, our Cathedral Racial Justice and Healing team has distilled a portion of our 2020 Cathedral Racial Audit into an initial series of action items, including commitment to a second cohort of Cathedral members participating in the Ecumenical Action Project here in Minneapolis, as well as a 5-part formation series begun just this past Wednesday under the theme of Becoming Beloved Community. The goal of this work is, on the one hand, to gradually increase the number of St. Markans engaged in this important work, and on the other hand, to create both the systems and the culture that will assure this work persists. It will not be a quick fix to right the wrongs of racism in America and in the church. It will take generations, and we are preparing for that reality as we lay this groundwork. We are only now beginning. Thank you to all of those whose fingerprints are on this important work, and to all those who have said yes to the work so far. Lastly, for this section of the report, we all know well how devastating the isolation, depression, and anxiety of these past years have been. The very real experience of loss and grief, though shared by all of us, is perhaps most keenly felt by the youngest and the oldest among us, those who are uniquely vulnerable to major disruptions in their ability to connect and to socialize in meaningful and age-appropriate ways. On behalf of the council and of the whole congregation, I want to say a particular word of thanks and praise to those who have served heroically among these cathedral constituencies. To Helen Hansen, Lowell Johnson, and the Cathedral Pastoral Care Team, to Stacy Klattenoff and the Youth Ministry Team, and to Ann Ostenso Moore, Monica Kruger, and the Children and Families Team. We know that you are all swimming in the same water as each of us, and yet you've been able to serve out of your own experience of need for this community in need, and that is truly awe-inspiring, and we are all deeply grateful to you and your good work. I can say without doubt or hesitation that at the end of 2021, the state of the cathedral is very good indeed. Now, this isn't to deny that very real challenges do exist, challenges that will persist beyond COVID subsiding. Yet given the fundamental strength of St. Mark's, I have every reason to believe these challenges present us with amazing opportunities to shift from the largely technical work of these past 8 years into what is largely adaptive work ahead. The first shift is from management to mission and ministry. Anxious systems, such as the one to which I arrived in 2014, focus heavily on management, and for darn good reason. This is much like the hypothermic body that focuses all blood flow on the vital organs. Without core functions functioning well, nothing else really much matters. Despite the anxiety around us, the anxiety within us is no longer what it was. One telltale symptom of this shift is that our membership appears less inclined to seek management roles within our cathedral governing structures, choosing instead to offer their vast gifts and passion to lead cathedral mission and ministry. I want to assure you, I see this as a strength, as a success, not as a failure. This is where we want the energy focused, supporting and serving one another in the communities we live in. Of course, we still need a wise and effective cathedral council, which is our nonprofit board, who ensure we're in compliance with state corporate statutes and episcopal constitutions and canons. But that body needn't be as expansive nor as engaged as it has previously been. Its job is to resource the mission and ministry of the cathedral. With the leadership and legal acumen of our own Carrie Child here on this meeting, your cathedral council is wisely modifying the cathedral constitution to be in alignment with state statute, which allows us a smaller, more streamlined board as the times invite. We will continue to follow the spirit in that regard. The second shift in our overall cathedral is in our overall cathedral funding model. As you heard a little bit from Treasurer Ted Sherman, and as I've mentioned elsewhere, most large faith communities like ours fund their annual operating budget out of 3 key revenue streams: annual pledges, building revenues, and endowment income. The ideal model is for all 3 streams to be within a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio. That is not the case for us presently at the St. Mark's Cathedral. At our present time, our $1 million pledge base, which still has room to grow, by the way, is outpacing both our building revenues and our endowment income by a ratio of 5 to 1 each. Canon Kingsley is working deliberately and creatively with the finance and facilities teams to identify new opportunities for increasing our building revenues in order to close that gap. Now, some of those opportunities will require that we all radically reimagine some of our spaces for their highest, best use as an asset, not only for our Sunday congregation, but also for our daily surrounding community. I will assure you now, and your leadership can assure you now, that there will be open, honest, and candid conversation as those new opportunities come into focus. No surprises. Additionally, our outgoing senior warden, Paul Lakeman, who will be working closely with me and the Cathedral Foundation development consultant, Jack Sisler, will be building the case and facilitating the ask for growing our cathedral endowment, which presently rests just below $5 million, generating just under $200,000 per year for our operating budget. Though your Cathedral Foundation has been incredibly generous these past 3 budgeting cycles to commit financial support beyond the base $200,000 draw, all of it interest income, none of it touching the corpus of the investments, they have been able to help us support the redevelopment initiative, which we first began in 2020. We know, however, that drawing beyond the base draw of 4.5% is not sustainable. Thus, we need to grow the corpus. The only remedy is, in fact, growing the corpus, knowing that every 5 million generates another 200,000 per year, meaning that a goal to merely keep pace with our current pledge base would require an additional $20 million to bring our corpus to 25 million, or 1.125 million in annual draw off the foundation. This would position us in the low middle of the pack among endowed cathedrals and would provide the resources necessary to further strengthen both our congregational life and our community presence. There's both core work and new initiatives that we simply cannot afford without it. The work of previous generations was to purchase, plant, and develop St. Mark's physical infrastructure. It is the work of this generation to invest with faith, hope, vision, and conviction to build our financial infrastructure, ensuring our sustainability, creativity, and vitality for St. Mark's next 100 years. The final shift I'll mention is one that I also pointed to in my written report, and that has to do with how we understand the role and the function of your dean. Now, without needlessly centering the dean, we do have to admit that the dean's role is a pivotal role in the life we share here at St. Mark's, at least symbolically. As with council, so too with the dean, that in times of stress and anxiety, we may well identify managerial gifts as those most sought out, someone with skills and interests related to congregational development, which necessarily begins with technical interventions before adaptive work is possible. The technical leader and the adaptive leader aren't always the same person. As such, it is vitally important that we're always assessing how we're doing, not only celebrating goals accomplished, but also identifying new challenges and new opportunities that arise as our own reality shifts. My work as your dean is very different now than it was in 2014. We've got a different staff, different council, different membership, different ministry leaders. We have different financial resources, different digital capabilities, different neighbors, different community partners, different community concerns, even different community opportunities. Were we to describe the nature of the dean's work today, along with the skills, knowledge, strength, experience, and disposition necessary for success in that work, I assure you it would read very differently today than it did in 2014. And I want to assure you that that is okay. That is expected. It is a sign that we are alive and that we're growing and that we are evolving. And it is my responsibility as the dean, the present occupant of that important position, it is my responsibility to name that reality, that you and I are each evolving together. So we need to be sensitive and we need to be honest about the ways this evolution both affirms our continued compatibility, as well as the ways that that evolution strains it. No tenure lasts forever. Every ministry partnership has a season. While there's absolutely no rush to make any changes, we also don't want to miss any signs that change is happening and that new leadership may be needed in order to best nurture those changes. I want to assure you that I am committed to open, honest, and candid communication as our mutual discernment unfolds, holding out hope that we can model healthy and deliberate leadership decisions, as opposed to the conflicts of the past. My primary goal since the first day as your dean has been that my last day as your dean would be marked by joy and peace. The only real signs in my mind that my time serving among you has borne the desired fruit. Good transitions in leadership do not happen by accident, but by significant prayer, intense discernment, and hard effort. I just want you all to know that I'm ready to put in that effort, and I hope you are as well. For then and only then will we know for certain and beyond a doubt that the state of the cathedral is very, very good indeed. But for now, please know how grateful I am to continue serving with the privilege of occupying this position as your 7th Cathedral Dean. Bless you each and always. And here's to an amazing 2022. Thank you. Mr. Lakeman, you are still muted.
Sorry. Carrie, the next thing on the agenda is member testimonials. Is that, and I'll ask the dean as well, is that to allow the participants to comment? Is that correct?
Mary Lusk has a team of folks prepared to offer a good word to us this morning at the last portion of our annual meeting before you send us forth. And so you could probably hand it to Mary to facilitate
all right,
that.
Mary, it's all yours.
Excellent. I just will say this has been a great meeting. Thank you all. Paul, great to hear, both Pauls, great to hear your words. Thank you. Thank you. So we have 4 members that are ready to speak briefly about what St. Mark's has meant to them during this last year. And I will just tell you the order of their names. I do not need to reintroduce each one of you. So first up is Joan Potter, followed by Drasana Mosafir, followed by Jim Polk, and then followed by Mary Beth Farrell. So Joan Potter, please go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm Joan Potter. I've been a St. Markin since 2017, so despite my advanced age, I'm a relative newbie. I was drawn initially by the quality, the beauty, the integrity of the music and liturgy. And I was drawn by my own perception of a shared historical context. In this past year of COVID, I've continued to be fed by those things and so much more. St. Mark's for me this past year has been a place of calm and acceptance. It's been a place of comfort in what's been an alienating, lonely, and quite frankly, boring time. St. Mark's is a place that has stepped up and challenged my perception of shared history. You've widened my view, you've stretched me, you've pushed me to rethink. So for example, and this is just one example, on a weekly basis in the greetings, we acknowledge that we gather, worship, serve on the ancestral homeland of the Dakota people, and that we are responsible to be repairers of that breach. And that's really significant. Even in this isolating time of COVID, I am responsible. And that is why each of us matters, because God is, each of us matters because the God that we worship has not ever been, is not, will never be a God who looks away from us. He always sees us, even when we feel like maybe we're not seen. And St. Mark's keeps reminding me of that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Prasanna. I'm currently a math grad student at University of Minnesota, and I'm pretty new to St. Mark's. I started attending in person starting in the summer of 2021. So I was initially drawn in while checking out some of the sermons on Zoom during COVID. I was really just looking for a supportive church home, and also just really looking for a community that would be supportive to me trying to find my faith and find a faith home as an adult. So I recently went through courses for adult baptism, and I was just really amazed by how supportive the community was and just how helpful everyone was in helping gain basically an educational background, like in the Episcopal 101 group, and also in the Young Adults and Young Professionals reading group. I would say overall, St. Mark's has been a place where I felt really accepted, even as someone who started going to church just as an adult, and where it's been really easy for me to connect with supportive people who are also just trying to integrate their faith into aspects of their life, like finding their career paths and interacting with the people around them. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jim Folk. And my wife and I have been members at St. Mark's since many, many years. 1974, we started attending. We're received in 76. So I guess that qualifies us as the old folks. Reasons we started St. Mark's are still the same reasons I think during the last 2 years have sustained us. A community of people worshiping God together and trying to serve the community. I've seen many changes in those years, and I think echoing what Father Paul said, there are changes that by and large have made our ability to serve a community outside of ourselves even greater. My wife and I have traveled a lot, and being in COVID lockdown was much like traveling. It would have been isolating. However, we were able to be in touch on Wednesday nights during the sessions, which meant a great deal to us. The roundtables, I guess, as we would think of them in the days when we were sitting together. And the occasional services that we were able to attend, and that either online or in person occasionally, were very meaningful to us to sustain our faith in continuity and in our community. On a personal level, I think I've learned so much about myself, my growth, my faith, and I believe my wife has as well. And so all of that together is what St. Mark's has meant to us overall. They're the mechanical things like serving on as ushers and other process things, trying to serve on other kinds of committees, having our kids be acolytes over the years. But by and large, it's those faith issues within a community that worships beautifully and a consistent liturgy that is in line with its faith. So St. Mark's continues to grow in importance to us as we even become older folks. Thank you and good morning.
Okay, hi. And by the way, Jim, I wouldn't say you're older. I would just say you're long-term members. Maybe that's a better way of looking at it. My name is Mary Beth Farrell. I'm delighted to be here this morning. I have been a member of St. Mark's since about 2011, and I've been about part of the Episcopal Church since about that time. So I'm a little newer on that scale. I was gone for a few years because I went to seminary and went to ordination to be a deacon and now a priest. Was ordained this summer. I'm just delighted to be back home with you. So I just had a couple of thoughts here. One of my favorite authors wrote a memoir this year, and it's called It was by following the sun's rays that I reached the sun. It was by following the sun's rays that I reached the sun. And so I'll just share a couple of moments when I really felt like I was looking at a ray of sun being reflected. One was in the stories at Gather Round, when we shared our stories of our experience with God. One woman shared how from a time of a very, very small child and very sick, her mother dedicated her to God and prayed over her all of the time. Other people shared stories like losing everything and walking in a muddy field and calling out to God and really sensing that God was there somehow, some way. The light part was watching those stories and those words in other people's faces and eyes and have that come alive. We are transformed when we really hear each other and see each other, right? It's been a pleasure to be a part of the Wednesday Eucharist. We've had discussions about ordinary people in our lives who became extraordinary in some way. There's one little crystal in that area that really was a wonderful picture for me. They're not large services, as you know, but we had a couple there. We had some of our long-term people who serve in our church who've been here for a long while. We had a student who hadn't been in church in 20 years. And then we had a person experiencing homelessness join us. We went to the table and shared that table, and I saw light everywhere being reflected there, without a doubt. I've seen light in sad times. There's a current of grief that runs underneath these days, isn't there, with what has been lost. And I've seen people rise and be present for each other in that grief. And then in the discussions of racial injustice and healing, I've seen light in the ways that people show up authentically and aren't afraid to tell on themselves and aren't afraid to be honest or to really hang in there to have that tough conversation. And I've seen light when I've been at Evensong, and Ray and the section leaders and the AV people and the amazing team, Evensong team, show up all of the time, every time. And I see how that transforms people. Part of that liturgy would say, let my prayers be as incense to you, O Lord. I think about the pandemic, about all of these ways that we have had to adapt. But people, your presence makes all the difference. It doesn't matter if we're not gathered in exactly the same spot. We're here and God's here. And I am so hopeful and so delighted to see more ways that the light is reflected in all of you. So thank you. And I'm glad to be back.
Muted, Mr. Lakeman.
Oh, sorry. Mary, thank you, Mary Beth. Appreciate it very much. Carrie, do we have any other business to conduct?
Nope.
Okay. That having been said, thank you all for attending. I have a motion to adjourn the 2022 annual meeting of St. Mark's Cathedral.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you all. Godspeed to all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take good care.
Bye-bye.